Sarah was a doctor, dedicated to saving lives. A car accident left me critically injured. But Sarah broke her Hippocratic oath and chose her first love, who had only minor injuries. Time ticked away, second by second. I missed the golden window for rescue, and breathed my last in despair. One bang on the Pacific Coast Highway, two sedans rear-ended each other. The gray sedan I was driving was hit directly, sent crashing through the guardrail, and I was thrown from the front windshield. Quick, quick! The injured person is in critical condition. Are there any medical personnel here? Hurry and help. Did someone call 911? When will the ambulance get here? Dazedly, I heard people running and shouting around me. I opened my eyes. I saw my body lying sprawled at the edge of the cliff, limbs folded at grotesque angles. A circle of traffic police stood around. One of them held a walkie-talkie, his expression anxious. Didn't they say there was an ER doctor? Why hasn't she come over? What? She went to help the Beetle car owner? That's insane. The Beetle driver only has minor injuries. This person is dying here. Tell her to get over here. 4 minutes. 10 minutes. Half an hour. The golden hour for rescue had passed. No matter how the traffic police urged her, the figure in the white lab coat never came. By the time the ambulance arrived, my body was already cold. Due to hemorrhagic shock and multi-organ failure, he's beyond saving. As the doctor pronounced the verdict, I felt my soul becoming lighter and lighter. Unconsciously, I floated towards the Beetle car that had collided with mine. No. I should say, towards Sarah. Because I saw Sarah kneeling beside the Beetle, giving a man CPR. So, the ER doctor the traffic police were talking about was her. I knew the man, too. David, Sarah's childhood sweetheart, and her first love. He had just returned from studying abroad 3 months ago. Sarah and I met in college, so I only heard Abu T. her and David from others. They said Sarah caused quite a stir in the neighborhood trying to win David over back then. She even went to medical school because of David. It's no wonder Sarah would abandon me, critically injured, and choose David instead. The hospital room was very quiet. Sarah, in her white lab coat, came to take David's blood pressure. How is the person I hit? David asked. Sarah's hand holding the stethoscope trembled slightly, then she replied, I don't know, it was chaos. David sighed, smiling wryly, I hope he's okay. You really should have gone to him. I had airbags and wasn't badly hurt. Sarah took off the stethoscope and jotted down the data. Her tone sounded calm. I wasn't thinking straight then, and besides, the ambulance arrived quickly, so I figured he'd be alright. Okay, you're definitely fine. You can go home after 2 more days of observation. With that, Sarah turned to leave. Just as Sarah was about to step out of the hospital room, David suddenly asked, when you came to me first, was it because? No. Sarah cut off whatever David was about to say. She turned her head, looking at David with complex emotions. I'm married. David chuckled, it's just a marriage in name only. I heard all about it as soon as I got back. You don't have to make yourself miserable. Yes, miserable. In college, Sarah initially didn't intend to accept my pursuit. But unfortunately, I had financial power. And her father-in-law's medical supply business facing bankruptcy. To inject capital, Sarah was pressured by her family into marrying me for money. Because of this, Sarah always felt wronged and stifled. I knew all this. So after we got married, I put all the assets I could control under her name. I wanted to give her everything, double to compensate her. I thought that even a cold heart would eventually be warmed. Yet at the brink of life and death, Sarah still chose to break her Hippocratic oath and abandon me. 2. After making rounds, Sarah returned to her office. My soul felt bound to her, unable to leave her side. I could only follow her to the office. Perhaps David's words just now had stirred something in Sarah. I saw her take out her cell phone and send me a message. What do you want for dinner tonight? The sentence lingered in the text field for 3 or 4 minutes, but Sarah didn't press send. After a while, Sarah deleted the sentence and typed again. You there? A single word. She hit send. But it met with silence. Sarah lit up her cell phone screen several times, but got no reply from me. Director Thompson, who are you texting? Dr. Miller walked in, carrying a coffee mug, and teased her. Sarah instinctively hid her cell phone in her pocket, saying unnaturally, nothing, just ask family what's for dinner tonight. Dr. Miller didn't pay much attention, sitting at his desk and sighing, we're still sitting here, alive and well, able to text our families, but some people. Sigh. Sarah seemed to realize something and sat up straight. What is it? Just about that car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway. The driver of that gray sedan was knocked right off the cliff. I heard he was pretty much gone at the scene. I heard from the traffic police that there was an ER doctor there at the time. If they had given aid within 10 minutes, that person could have survived. I don't know what that doctor was thinking, choosing to help the beetle car driver who was only lightly injured, Dr. Miller lamented. Sarah's expression became uneasy. She was a very ethical emergency room doctor. Her duty was always to save lives, and for that, she'd sacrifice her personal life, rushing around the emergency room. Every time a rescue failed, she'd grieve for a while. This time, she had given up with her own hands, so she naturally felt troubled. He died? Sarah asked, clinging to a last shred of hope. Dr. Miller looked at her strangely. Of course he died. With injuries that severe. Poor guy, too. He's been dead for almost a day, and no family has come to claim the body. Oh, by the way, I remember your route to work goes along the Pacific Coast Highway. Did you see anything at the time? Sarah shook her head instinctively. I was rushing to work, didn't really notice anything. Dr. Miller sighed heavily a few more times, but Sarah didn't have the energy to listen anymore. She saw it was almost time to leave work, quickly changed her clothes, and packed her bag. I followed behind Sarah, watching her walk out of St. Jude's Hospital building, frequently checking her watch. That's when I remembered. It was Mr. Thompson's birthday today. Sarah, who usually didn't spend much time at home, had specifically called the night before, asking me to go back to Mr. Thompson's place with her for his birthday celebration. According to the plan, I was supposed to drive to St. Jude's Hospital to pick her up after work, grab a cake on the way, and go to Mr. Thompson's house together. But I was forever stuck on the Pacific Coast Highway. Sarah waited for almost 10 minutes, but didn't see me. She immediately pulled out her cell phone and called me. The number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. Sarah frowned at her cell phone, looking annoyed. She sent me several text messages. Do you have to make a scene now? My dad isn't well and can't handle stress. Can't you even pretend for a little while? I'm very disappointed in you. Facing these accusations, I remained silent. Not because I didn't want to reply, but because I couldn't. Following behind Sarah, I silently whispered, I'm sorry. 3. In the end, Sarah went back to Mr. Thompson's place with someone else. It was David. I haven't seen your father in a long time either. Today's a good opportunity to visit, David said, smiling brightly. Sarah instinctively wanted to refuse, but David said, if we see and be together, can't we at least be friends? On a day like this, when your husband won't even show up, I doubt he'd mind. Sarah seemed convinced and got into David's car. The atmosphere in the car was a little awkward. David made small talk. That beetle car is in the shop. Luckily I have a backup car, otherwise I'd be stranded. Oh, right, the person I hit still hasn't had any family claim the body. Poor guy. I heard he was clutching a bluebell bracelet when he died. It must have meant a lot to him. Sarah had been staring out the car window, lost in thought. Suddenly, she turned and looked intently at David. What bracelet? A bluebell bracelet. Pretty rare, right? If someone hadn't mentioned the flower, I wouldn't even know its name, David said, seemingly casually. Sarah's expression cracked, inch by inch. She murmured, no, that's impossible. What's impossible? David asked, a smile playing on his lips. Sarah didn't answer. She took out her cell phone again, her finger hovering over my number for a long time, but she didn't dial. I knew why Sarah reacted so strongly. The bluebell bracelet was, in a way, a token of our engagement. When we got engaged, we were supposed to exchange gifts. Sarah, just going through the motions, casually bought a bluebell bracelet from a small shop. $36. I didn't look down on the bracelet for being cheap, instead, I treasured it, wearing it every day. When others mocked me, a wealthy heir, for wearing plastic all the time, I would seriously retort, what do you know? It's a token of love. Because of this, Sarah remembered the bracelet vividly. It couldn't have been him. His car wasn't gray, Sarah suddenly blurted out. That's right, my car was red. But the day before yesterday, when Sarah asked me to come home for Mr. Thompson's birthday, she casually mentioned that red was gaudy. So I went to the car dealership and bought a gray car. When the accident happened, I had just driven out of the car dealership. It was perfectly normal for Sarah not to know. We drove back to Mr. Thompson's place. David had prepared 2 bottles of good wine and a case of expensive bourbon in advance. He carried the gifts and followed Sarah inside. Mr. Thompson came out smiling to greet them, but paused when he saw David. Well, Mr. Thompson looked at Sarah. Didn't Robert come back with you? Sarah just hummed in response. Although Sarah had tried to hide it, Mr. Thompson knew our marriage was troubled. Seeing this, Mr. Thompson sent David away and spoke to Sarah alone. Sarah, I know you were wronged back then. But after seeing you two for so many years, I can tell Robert truly loves you. He treats you well. Young love is just infatuation in the end. You'll understand when you reach my age. Everything that happened that day had left Sarah feeling breathless. She couldn't help but complain. I called him, and his phone was off. He didn't even reply to my text messages. He doesn't even think about it. If I were really involved with David, would I have married him? Mr. Thompson patted Sarah's shoulder. Let it go. Let's eat first. I'll call him in a bit. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson sat at the head of the table. Sarah and David sat on either side, followed by the younger generation. During the meal, David served Sarah food several times. Sarah just paused for a moment, then ate it. Watching this made my heart ache. A childhood sweetheart is different after all. I didn't even have the right to serve Sarah food. When we were newlyweds, I tried. But Sarah was disgusted, throwing the food and rice together into the trash. She said, "Don't you know there's saliva on chopsticks? How many germs are exchanged? And you're still trying to give it to me? What are you trying to do?" After that, I never dared to do anything like it again. It was obvious Sarah wasn't bothered by the germs, she was bothered by me. Mrs. Thompson was chatting with a few other older relatives, clearly enjoying herself, her voice getting louder and louder. Women her age, what they loved most was talking about their kids. Mrs. Thompson said proudly, "I'm not good with phones, but my son-in-law set it up for me. Look, it's perfectly clean, not a single ad." Aunt Carol chimed in, "Oh, definitely. I'll ask my daughter to set mine up too." But Aunt Susan noticed something. Pointing to Mrs. Thompson's call history, she said, "Oh my, who have you been calling so often?" Mrs. Thompson frowned, dismissing it. "Just scam calls. I don't know what's going on, but since this morning, different numbers keep calling, saying my son-in-law died in a car accident. They even said the accident was on the Pacific Coast Highway. Isn't that ridiculous? My son-in-law is out of town on a business trip. How could he possibly be on the Pacific Coast Highway?" Platter, Sarah's hand trembled, and her bowl and chopsticks fell to the floor. All eyes turned to Sarah. Mrs. Thompson even chuckled. "Look at you, child, why are you so jumpy? I saw the news. There was indeed a car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway this morning. The scammers are probably using that as inspiration to try and make some money. Scammers are really sophisticated now. Last time they said my daughter was having a difficult delivery and needed emergency surgery funds, using something like a deepfake, made it look so real. If I hadn't known my daughter wasn't pregnant, I probably would have fallen for it." Hearing Mrs. Thompson's words, Sarah relaxed again. The people around them chimed in. "That's right, scammers can even fake videos now, let alone just a few sentences. What a sweet couple, look how worried Sarah is." After dinner, everyone left. Sarah walked David out. A crescent moon hung in the layered clouds, like a pair of cold eyes watching the earth. David had a little to drink. He leaned against his car. "Are you really willing to live like this? Just keep up appearances as a couple?" "Sarah, there are some things I've held back for a long time. If I don't say them now, I might not get another chance. I love you. I've loved you since we were kids. It's just that back then I had no money or power, and with what happened to your father, I had no choice but to give you up to him. It's different now. He can't hold his money over us anymore." As David spoke, he reached out to put his arm around Sarah. Sarah instinctively pulled away, then said, "I need to think about it," and hurried off. My soul remained rooted to the spot, watching David clench his fist. His face, which had been full of affection, was now clouded with darkness. Even as a soul, I felt a chill run down my spine at that expression. When Sarah got home, Mr. Thompson took her into his study. Mr. Thompson had called me several times earlier. Obviously, none of the calls went through. Mr. Thompson's face was grim. "What exactly is going on between you and Robert?" Sarah shook her head expressionlessly. "How should I know what he's making a fuss about? Ever since David came back, he's been picking fights, even insisting I take time off to travel with him. He thinks everyone is a wealthy heir like him, with nothing serious to do, just eating, drinking, and having fun all day." My soul smiled bitterly from behind her. So that's how rotten I was in Sarah's eyes. 3 months ago, David returned from abroad. The first person he contacted was actually me. He came to my company and, with his head held high, told me to get a divorce. He said, "You know perfectly well who Sarah loves. If it weren't for your dirty money back then, Sarah and I would probably have 2 kids by now. Asking you for a divorce is just to spare you the embarrassment." I was furious. I threw my documents down and pointed at the door, telling him to get out. David smirked and told me I wouldn't regret it. I told Sarah about this and warned her that David was up to no good. Who knew, Sarah just started yelling at me instead. She even said I was delusional. I know David's character very well. He's not that kind of person. Please draft your lies before you tell them next time. Helplessness and sorrow pierced through my soul. At the time, I still wanted to save this marriage, which was why I suggested Sarah take an extended leave and we go on a trip. I naively thought that as long as I took Sarah away from David, my marriage could at least maintain a facade of harmony. Who knew, Sarah just hung up and gave me the silent treatment. If it weren't for Mr. Thompson's birthday this time, she probably still wouldn't have contacted me. 5. After talking with Mr. Thompson, Sarah went back to her room. She sat with her cell phone, lighting up the screen every now and then. Her fingers hovered over the text message interface, but in the end, she didn't do anything. At the very top of the message list were the texts I had sent her a few days ago. They were all messages checking in. Did you eat lunch? No matter how busy work is, eat something, or you'll get a stomachache. I've washed your jacket. I put in some laundry sanitizer, you can wear it. Going on a business trip soon. Call me if anything comes up. See how pathetic I was. Even if Sarah called me delusional, even if Sarah chose to believe David, even if Sarah was giving me the silent treatment, I still washed her clothes and worried about her stomachaches. Maybe David was right, I was just setting myself up for humiliation. I should have known a long time ago who lived in Sarah's heart, but I still didn't know my place. Look, now I'm dead by the side of the road. My body is unclaimed. Sarah scrolled through those text messages, her expression showing some confusion. She couldn't understand why someone who was so devoted had suddenly become distant overnight. This also caused Sarah to be a bit late for work the next day. As soon as she entered the office, Sarah asked a colleague, "Has anyone claimed the body from that car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway?" The colleague looked confused. "Which body? Are you talking about the one today, or the one from the day before yesterday?" The Pacific Coast Highway often had accidents because of its curves. Sarah shook her head. "Nothing, I might be overthinking." Just as Sarah grabbed her notebook, preparing for making rounds, Dr. Miller walked in. He sighed mournfully. "The morgue just notified us that any bodies unclaimed after 24 hours will be moved out of cold storage." Sarah's back stiffened. She instinctively said, "No." Dr. Miller looked at her strangely. "The cold storage is too crowded. These unclaimed bodies take up space and electricity." Sarah's knuckles turned white. "It's so hot out. If they're moved out, they'll just decompose." Dr. Miller looked helpless. "If they decompose, they'll just be taken for cremation anyway. Nobody's claimed them, so there's probably no need to keep them for family to mourn." All morning, Sarah was distracted. She unusually brought her phone with her. She kept checking her phone every now and then. Luckily, there were no emergency surgeries this morning, otherwise something could have gone wrong. In the afternoon, because they were short-staffed, a colleague asked Sarah to help move bodies from the morgue. I watched as my own body, wrapped in a sheet, was lifted out of cold storage. Ah, what a tragic way for a man to go. Just driving along properly and rear-ended to death. He was driving a nice car, but nobody's even claimed the body. Wonder what his family situation is. The colleague lifted one end, and Sarah lifted the other. Sarah impulsively reached out and lifted a corner of the sheet. The colleague quickly said, "Don't look. It's pretty gruesome. Let's just get it out of here. We have a meeting soon." Sarah's hand pulled back. The sheet had fallen near my face. Just a little bit, just a tiny bit more, and Sarah would have seen my face. But she missed it. My soul hovered above, watching the scene unfold, unsure whether I felt loss or relief. I died from such a violent impact, I must look terrible. Maybe it's better Sarah didn't lift the sheet. She's always compassionate. Even if she hated me, seeing me like this might still make her sad for a while. My body, wrapped in a sheet, was casually placed under a tent. Sarah walked away without looking back. When evening came, Sarah finally couldn't stand it anymore. She sent me a text message. "Can we talk?" 6. No reply. Even if I were alive, my cell phone had been smashed in that car accident. What did Sarah want to talk about? Divorce? Right. Now David was back, and she finally didn't have to feel insulted by my money. Just like yesterday, David was already parked outside St. Jude's Hospital, waiting for Sarah to get off work. Sarah initially didn't want to get in, until David asked, "Don't you want to know where Robert is?" That single sentence got to Sarah. She quickly got into the car. "You know where he is?" Sarah asked immediately. David didn't rush to answer. Instead, he asked Sarah, "If I tell you, will you seriously consider being with me?" Sarah fell silent. Her silence sparked a sliver of hope in my heart. Maybe she didn't hate me that much after all. But the next second, Sarah's words were like a bucket of cold water poured over my head. "No matter what happens between you and me, I'm getting this divorce. So tell me, where exactly is Robert?" David smiled with satisfaction and tossed a few photos to Sarah. They were candid shots of me and my female assistant during a business trip. There were pictures of us entering and leaving hotels, entering and leaving KTVs. The angles were tricky, making me look quite intimate with the assistant. "See? While you couldn't eat or sleep over him, he was being intimate with someone else," David said with a nasty smile. While Sarah was examining the photos carefully, David leaned in closer. "Sarah, trust me, we're the best match. All he has is his dirty money. He doesn't understand you at all." Sarah's hand holding the photos trembled slightly. She suddenly looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed. He wouldn't. For the first time, Sarah pushed David away and got out of the car. The night breeze blew gently. Sarah still clutched the photos in her hand. Lost in thought, she suddenly stopped under a street lamp and looked at the photos again under the dim light. Immediately after, she ran frantically towards St. Jude's Hospital. "Director Thompson, where are you going? Aren't you off duty?" a colleague asked, surprised. Sarah ignored her colleague's strange look and rushed straight to the morgue. My body had been placed in the tent in the open area earlier that afternoon. Sarah ripped open the tent. It was empty. "Where are the bodies?" Sarah grabbed her colleague and asked. The colleague looked bewildered. "They were just taken for cremation. Those were all unclaimed bodies. They were worried they'd start smelling by morning." Sarah ran out frantically. The wind howled, as if a pair of hands were gently wiping the tears from Sarah's face. Sarah hailed a taxi and sped towards the crematorium. At this hour, no families would be bringing bodies for cremation. The staff were rushing to leave work, piling up everything sent from St. Jude's Hospital, preparing to burn them all at once. What a hassle, suddenly this new rule. A bunch of people nobody even claims. Why bother with them? Just put in a plain coffin and buried them, the staff member grumbled as he started the equipment. Sarah arrived just then. As if possessed, she violently pulled the staff member away. Then she lifted the sheet from each of the ODs on the scene, one by one. Not him. Not this one either. This one. When she got to the last body, Sarah's hand, gripping the sheet, didn't lift. 7. The staff member walked over, annoyed. "What do you think you're doing? You know you're trespassing, right?" Sarah ignored him, her gaze fixed on the last body. Because of Sarah's forceful movements, my hand fell down. It was still clutching the bluebell bracelet. "No, that's impossible." Sarah's lips moved, and she slowly backed away. The staff member looked at her as if she were crazy and waved his hand. "Get help if you're sick. Don't waste my time." With that, the staff member started pushing me towards the crematorium furnace. Sarah stood in front of it frantically. "You can't burn him. Don't burn him." The staff member grew impatient. "Ma'am, what is going on? Have your husband take you home and stop causing trouble out here?" Sarah finally snapped. She ripped open the sheet. My pale, lifeless face appeared before her. Perhaps because I had been outside cold storage all afternoon, there was a strange odor from my body. The staff member couldn't help but cover his nose and stepped aside. But Sarah seemed not to notice the smell. She knelt before my body, staring blankly, and took my hand. "Robert, don't scare me. I know you mind David. I won't contact him anymore from now on, okay? I've already given in. How long are you going to stay angry?" Sarah was both crying and laughing, which startled the staff member. Luckily, the colleague from St. Jude's Hospital had followed her. When the colleague saw my face, he froze. "Director Thompson, who is this?" Sarah disliked me, so she never let me visit her at St. Jude's Hospital. Even when I was sick, to avoid suspicion, I had to go to other hospitals. That's why none of her colleagues knew me. Sarah was overwhelmed with emotion and couldn't speak, only letting out sounds of pain sobbing. The colleague quickly contacted Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. By the time Mr. and Mrs. Thompson arrived, Sarah had cried herself unconscious. But her hands were still gripping my body, and they couldn't pry them open. How could this happen? Mr. Thompson's legs felt weak. Since I got married, Mr. Thompson had always treated me quite well, remembering how I had helped him through a difficult time. Seeing the elderly Mr. Thompson so distressed, I suddenly felt guilty. I wanted to reach out and pat Mr. Thompson's shoulder to tell him not to be sad, but my hand passed right through his shoulder. Right. I almost forgot, I was already dead. Sarah woke up in the middle of the night. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, despite their old age, had stayed with her at the crematorium. As soon as Sarah woke up, as if possessed, she grabbed Mr. Thompson's arm and said, "David. David did it. Quick, call the police." Mr. Thompson was already exhausted from the ordeal. He immediately asked, "What evidence do you have?" Sarah quickly pulled out the photos David had given her to slander me. Sarah pointed at the red Beetle car in the corner and said bitterly, "It was him. He tracked Robert and crashed into Robert's car. How could he not know about Robert's death then? And he still tried to trick me into thinking Robert was cheating." Mr. and Mrs. Thompson exchanged worried glances and assured Sarah they would find out the truth. Because of Sarah's insistence, my body, which had already started to smell, was put back into cold storage and sealed. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, behind Sarah's back, sighed heavily. Who would have thought that wasn't a scam call, that it was true? "If only I had known, if only I had gone to check," Mrs. Thompson murmured. Mr. Thompson sighed deeply and patted Mrs. Thompson's shoulder. "Nobody could have imagined Robert, that child, was doing fine, then. It's Sarah's fault too. She didn't cherish Robert when he was here. Now she's probably full of regret. I warned her long ago not to wait until it was too late to regret it. Now look." Mr. Thompson got angrier the more he spoke. If it weren't for Sarah being overwhelmed with emotion, he probably would have scolded her more. 8. Originally, the rear-end collision between me and David was just a simple accident. On the surface, David wasn't speeding or drunk driving. It was my slowing down and repeated sudden braking that caused the tragic rear-end collision. Originally, he only had to pay compensation. But because the photo Sarah had became key evidence, the traffic police transferred the case to homicide detectives. The suspect, David, had been tracking the deceased, Robert, for a long time before the accident. 2 minutes before the accident, the deceased Robert received a call on his cell phone. It was placed by David. The content of that call may be the reason the deceased slowed down and even braked hard multiple times. The homicide detectives worked fast. The case was solved in just 2 days. My cell phone data was extracted. Because I used a Huawei, which has an automatic call recording function, David's words were recorded verbatim. "Robert, do you know where Sarah is?" "Where? Ha ha ha, Sarah was right. You really are a cuckold." "David, what the hell do you mean? Explain yourself. The birthmark on Sarah's waist is pretty." Squeal, that was the sound of tires scraping the pavement. I panicked when I heard that sentence and slammed on the brakes. Immediately after, there was a huge crash. Sarah went absolutely frantic after hearing the recording. She, who was always so calm and composed, lunged at David frantically. The police tried to stop her, but she scratched them a few times. "Enough!" Mr. Thompson roared, his voice booming. "Robert is dead. Who are you putting on this show for?" Mr. Thompson's gaze was sharp. As if a pause button had been pressed, Sarah froze in place. Mr. Thompson gave David a deep look, then pulled Sarah away. Back at home, Sarah was like a ghost, not eating or drinking, locking herself in her room. My soul squatted on the floor, facing her. From dusk till dawn, and then from dawn till dusk again, Sarah just stared blankly at our wedding photo. It was our only picture together. "I'm sorry," she murmured, stroking the photo frame. Sarah stroked the photo frame, murmuring to herself. There was really nothing going on between me and David. He knew about the birthmark because he heard my mom talk about it when we were kids. How could you be so stupid, answering the phone while driving? If there was something wrong, couldn't you have waited until you pulled over to ask me? In just a few days, Sarah had become emaciated. Her eyes were sunken in her face. I wanted so badly to tell her I wasn't stupid. I was just too in love. I was afraid that if I waited until I pulled over to ask, Sarah and David might actually have done something. But I couldn't speak these words. Since Sarah discovered my body, my soul had been gradually turning transparent. Soon, I probably wouldn't even be able to quietly stay with Sarah like this. Sarah had said more in these 2 days than she had our entire marriage. She apologized to me, saying she never thought I insulted her with money. It was just that her family constantly asked me for financial help, which made her feel indebted to me. She didn't know what to say to me. She also said she had finally figured things out recently and had started trying for a baby, wanting to have a child with me. "Robert, don't you love me? How could you bear to leave me all alone? You're too selfish." Sarah had no more tears left. Her dry eyes were bloodshot. Finally, Mr. Thompson gave Sarah some news, and she was willing to leave the room. Mr. Thompson said, "David was sentenced to death. He wants to see you." Sarah stared blankly at Mr. Thompson, not speaking. Mr. Thompson couldn't help but frown. Go, hear what David has to say, maybe he knows if Robert had a last message for you? 9. Sarah finally went. She and David faced each other through the visiting room glass. You have the nerve to see me? Sarah asked coldly. David was stunned for a moment. Then he pointed to the bluebell bracelet on Sarah's wrist, a look of mockery on his face. You have the nerve to wear that bracelet, why shouldn't I? Sarah's fingers gripping the phone receiver turned white. She said sharply, you deliberately ruined our marriage, caused Robert's death, and you still have the nerve to smile? You monster! David burst into hysterical laughter. As he laughed, he stamped his foot hard, seeming to suck the air out of the room. He said, Robert was on the brink of death then. You had a chance to save him, but you chose me. Sarah, don't pretend you're so innocent. You killed Robert with your own hands. You're the executioner. Sarah's face instantly turned ashen. She shook her head in panic, vehemently arguing, no, that's not true. I didn't know he was in that car, that's why I saved you first. David truly was her childhood sweetheart. He understood Sarah very well. He pressed his face tightly against the glass, his features contorted. Save? Did I need saving? I was just unconscious. All I had were minor scratches. You broke your Hippocratic oath. You would face judgment. As if struck by something, Sarah leapt from the chair. She shouted with all her might, no, that's wrong. It's all because you said those things. That's why Robert was distracted and… David laughed again, tears were streaming down his face. If you hadn't been hesitant yourself, how would Robert have believed me? You're the one who killed Robert. How do you still have the nerve to be alive? I couldn't hear the rest of what he said because Sarah rushed out of the detention center in a panic. My soul followed, but I only saw her standing by the overpass, peering down at the traffic flowing below. Don't! I forgot I was just a soul and shouted out loud. But Sarah clearly couldn't hear me. She stared intently at an approaching truck, then suddenly jumped, bang! Screech, the flowing traffic came to a halt. Sounds of braking, shouting, screaming. Sarah's head was run over by a truck and smashed. Immediately after, a white form, her soul, slowly rose from her body. She looked up at the overpass. When she saw me, a joyful smile appeared on her face. Husband, I'm sorry. Are you still angry? Sarah drifted cautiously towards me. But my soul was becoming more and more transparent. No! Sarah reached out, lunging towards me. But she fell through. I completely vanished. Only a sigh remained.